one and all, and welcome, finally, to another episode of Time Traveler, the 1940s. We are here with a simply amazing human being today. Can't wait to let you know who that's going to be. You might see it in just a second. Here, entrepreneur, show business legend, multi-millionaire. She was just really ridiculously and wildly successful. Our guest for today is none other than Der Bingle himself, Mr. Bing Crosby. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Before I get going on the details of his pretty amazing life, and again, I was not able to cover all of it in a Sims 4 video, but I'm going to do my best. First, I want to make a couple of announcements. Not least among those is an apology for being gone so incredibly long. Things have been just crazy in my life. One of the things that's crazy right now is that my oldest child is getting married in less than 2 weeks. And from the recording of this video, I should say, probably by the time I get this out, it will be even closer and hopefully not past. We're trying to get this out by the weekend. Today is Tuesday, June the 6th. Yes. Okay. So we're doing our best. We're hustling, trying to get this out before the wedding. So many things to do. I also wanted to make a quick announcement that the Simstress, that would be me, is also branching out. Well, not really. It's not really a new adventure. I'm also a visual artist, among other things. I'm a singer and teacher and writer and artist. And art is one of my biggest passions, apart from opera singing, which I don't get to do a whole lot these days. I do get to teach it though, so that's fun. But I am going to be doing digital art now as well. I have been doing acrylic painting and also sketching and calligraphy my whole life, and I've sold many of those. I've even had a few commissions, but I'm going to turn that over into a little bit of a digital business on the side. Currently going to be working on an Etsy store that I've opened called Vintage Repose. It is under the Simstress brand name, and I will be adding a link to that if anybody's interested. Right now I just have some sample digital stickers up there, but I'm actually getting ready to launch some original illustrations for digital stickers. I'm also going to be doing some vintage themed planner templates and journal templates in my Vintage Flair theme as well. So if you're interested in supporting me in other ways, they're really inexpensive and a lot of fun if you're into digital creations, which I am very much a fan of. And now, without further ado, let's get into the story. Sorry for blabbing on and on for the better part of 3 minutes. I apologize. But it's great to be back, and I can't wait to talk to some of you guys in the comments. I know some of you have been wondering where I've been, and I'm so grateful for you and that you didn't forget about me. Bing Crosby was born Harry Lillis Crosby Jr. on May 3rd, 1903 in Tacoma, Washington, to parents Harry Lowe Crosby, a bookkeeper, and Catherine Helen Harrigan, known as Kate, in a house that his father built. Shortly after his birth, the family moved to Spokane, Washington. In 1913, Harry's father built another home for the family at 508 East Sharp Avenue. This house would one day contain a collection of memorabilia from his lifetime, acting as a museum on the grounds of his future college, Gonzaga University. Harry was the fourth of 7 children whose family had a long history in England, Scotland, and Ireland. Crosby was a direct descendant of Mayflower passenger William Brewster. In 1917, Harry took a summer job at Spokane's local auditorium. He was exposed to a variety of famous actors, singers, and comedians of the time and was mesmerized by their performances. Harry became interested in performance, and by 1923, he was invited to join a band at his high school as their drummer. They called themselves the Musicalators, and they performed at dances for high schoolers and local clubs. The small band even performed on a Spokane radio station broadcast for KQH, but sadly disbanded after only 2 years. Crosby and former band member Al Rinker went on to work at the Clemmer Theater in Spokane, which is now known as the Bing Crosby Theater. When he first began his singing career, Crosby was a member of the vocal trio known as the Three Harmony Aces. They were employed to entertain people at the theater between films. Crosby, an accompanist Al Rinker, reconfigured their band several times and often took outside jobs with different musicians. In 1925, Crosby and Rinker decided that they wanted to seek out real fame in Hollywood, so they traveled to Los Angeles. They made fast contacts in the industry and were subsequently hired by the Franchon and Marco Time agency. It was only for a 13-week review called The Syncopation Idea, but they each earned a hefty $75 per week. They developed their craft and became professional performers during their LA days. They created a very perky music style that college-age audiences truly loved. After the review closed, they joined the Will Morrissey Music Hall Review and worked on an independent act that caught the attention of band leader Paul Whiteman. Whiteman hired the men and paid them $150 per week. It was 1926 when they debuted in Chicago at the Tivoli Theater. They recorded I've Got the Girl in 1926 with Don Clark's orchestra. Crosby and Rinker's success with Whiteman was exceptional, but they were soon forced to add a third voice to their act to fill out the sound for the larger auditoriums of New York City. During this time, Crosby learned a great deal about the life of a performer and became a strong solo singer. He became the star of the Rhythm Boys, acquiring his first #1 hit, singing a jazzy rendition of Old Man River. In 1929, the Rhythm Boys appeared in the film King of Jazz alongside Whiteman, but they had become dissatisfied with his leadership and moved on to the Gus Amheim Orchestra, performing regularly at the Coconut Grove and the Ambassador Hotel. This is where Crosby's solo voice began to break hearts and melt his audiences. He no longer needed the band to book large venues, and he broke with the Rhythm Boys. He married American actress, dancer, and singer Dixie Lee in September of 1930, but his devotion to his career was an issue, however. When she threatened divorce, he chose to pour himself into his performance even further. At the end of 1931, Crosby had become a huge success as the star of his own nationwide radio segment, 15 Minutes with Bing Crosby. He had soon signed on with Brunswick Records and CBS Radio, singing several of the #1 hits of 1931. Next, Crosby made his way into a series of musical comedy short films. This blossomed into what would become a series of 55 films in which he would receive top billing. He was in a total of 79 films across his lifetime. In 1934, he signed with Decca Records and recorded a prolific number of popular hits that would go on to become industry standards. During World War II, Crosby performed in front of many American troops and even learned a bit of German. He read several German propaganda scripts and acquired some popularity with German listeners because of it. He became known as Der Bingle to several fans, both German and American alike. Crosby was at his height of fame during the 1940s, touring the world, recording, and making films alongside other heartthrobs of the era. He eventually signed on with Paramount Pictures as well, staying with them well into the 1950s. In 1945, Life magazine stated that Crosby was America's #1 star, having acquired more fans and money than any other entertainer in history. His biggest selling hit, unsurprisingly, was Irving Berlin's White Christmas. It was introduced to audiences on Christmas Day in 1941, later appearing in the 1942 holiday film Holiday Inn. It was said that every time the song aired, 50,000 copies of it sold immediately afterward, amounting to millions of printings of his hit record across the United States and United Kingdom alone. He stayed with Decca Records until 1955 and saw sales for this record grow each year. Records from 10 years prior were still top in sales, and no one had seen this type of mega stardom before. White Christmas remains the best-selling song of all time, selling over 100 million copies across the globe. Der Bingle was not his first nickname. During interviews, he was often asked about how he came upon the nickname Bing. He liked to tell the story that, as a small boy, he was a huge fan of the game Cops and Robbers, walking around the streets of town with toy pistols, one on each hip, and would happily pull them out shouting, "Bing, bing, bing," whenever he would see someone willing to play along with his role-playing. In reality, it was a neighbor who started the nickname, referencing a local paper called the Bingville Bugle, which Harry liked, deeming him Bingo from Bingville. Over time, the name was shortened to Bing, and it stuck with him for life. Bing's personal life was one filled with a variety of issues that he tried to keep out of the public eye. He was married twice. His first wife was the aforementioned Dixie Lee, with whom he had 4 sons. Gary, and then twins, Dennis and Philip, and son Lindsay. Dixie had a serious drinking problem, and while Bing did everything possible to help her with it, he eventually ended up spending less and less time at home. This resulted in a publicly confirmed affair with American actress Joan Caulfield. He considered divorcing Dixie to marry Joan, but that never happened. He was Catholic and was encouraged by family members to consider his faith and remain true to his vows. Bing ultimately decided to stay with his wife until the end. Dixie passed away after a battle with ovarian cancer in 1952. After her death, Bing had relationships with model Pat Sheehan, who later married his son Dennis, actress Inger Stevens, and Grace Kelly, before finally marrying actress Kathryn Grant. He had 3 children with Kathryn, Harry, Mary, and Nathaniel, who all had successful careers in film, television, and amateur golf, despite Crosby attempting to keep his family out of the public eye and the, quote, Hollywood lifestyle, unquote. A lesser-known fact about Mr. Crosby is that he had quite an extensive entrepreneurship. He was one of the richest men in the history of show business, but he also had investments in music publishing, television, owning a handful of stations on the West Coast, baseball teams, cattle ranches, oil wells, real estate, racehorses, and various types of mining operations. He also had a stake in the Minute Maid Orange Juice Corporation and made a great deal of money with them. His schedule was jam-packed, doing shows for both the East and West Coast of the United States, and always expected to perform live radio broadcasts. Bing started to push the National Broadcasting Company to pre-record his radio shows so that he could work more efficiently, but they resisted. Eventually, Bing played a huge role in the development of audio recording with magnetic tape, which began to grow rapidly between 1938 and 1943. The quality was incredibly clear, and pretty soon, Bing was being offered contracts to record with not only the National Broadcasting Company, NBC, but also ABC, the American Broadcasting Company. He was making between $30,000 and $70,000 a week in royalties from the broadcast of his pre-recorded radio shows across the nation. Bing had made himself a huge empire of success and family with 7 children between his 2 wives. Along with his great success came a great deal of speculation about his private life. Bing's loyalty to Dixie Lee was often remarked upon because it was suspected that he himself was an alcoholic. Rumors and tabloid articles swirled around the topic that their twin boys, Dennis and Philip, were born with fetal alcohol syndrome. Bing never acknowledged that anything was wrong with the twins. He also never spoke publicly about his wife's issues. Always discreet, Bing pushed through until his young wife's untimely death. His children all had very different lifestyles and levels of success, but most notably, many remember rumors of Bing's parenting with his boys. His eldest son, Gary, wrote a memoir called Going My Own Way after Bing's death. Gary alleged that Bing was cold and abusive during his childhood. Sister Mary spoke to Gary about the book. She had never known her father to be anything but supportive and loving, and she needed to understand why he had tarnished their father's good name. Gary admitted to her that the publisher pushed him to include, quote, juicy, unquote, details, because the worse it sounded, the more copies he would sell. He tried to make a public apology after the fact, but damage had already been done and his legacy had been marred. In support of this fact, I can honestly say that I heard the allegations that swirled around this book as a child, and the rumors stuck with me personally. I always wondered if Crosby had been abusive to his kids because of how frequently discussed the memoir was in the media and in social circles. People also spoke of Bing's own issues with alcohol, which allegedly spanned his lifetime, but it was likely just an issue that came part and parcel with show business in its upper echelons. It certainly never interfered with his business sense and his professionalism. Luckily, many who were fans of Crosby's remember him for his wonderful family Christmas specials, singing carols with his wife Catherine and their grown children dressed in festive attire. This is who Bing was for many of us who knew him closer to the end of his career. He was a talented and wholesome performer who loved his work. Crosby's work in radio, film, recording, and stage performance continued in a fairly robust way throughout the 1950s and 1960s, including his hilariously famous Road 2 series of films with Bob Hope. In the 1970s, Bing was still going strong and videotaping performances to be televised. During one such performance for CBS, Bing was to celebrate his 50th anniversary gala with his dear friend Bob Hope in the audience when he tragically fell off the stage and into the orchestra pit. He ruptured a disc and spent a month in the hospital recovering. Upon his return to the stage, Bing had one final American concert on August 16, 1977, in Concord, California. The electricity went out during the performance, but Bing continued singing without his microphone to an adoring crowd. On October 13, 1977, Crosby took a trip to Spain with friends to join them in hunting and golfing. He played 18 holes of golf with his World Cup champion golfer friend, Manuel Pinheiro, and seemed to be in a great mood. He was even cited to sing for some nearby workers who recognized him out on the golf course. When they finished playing, Bing said, "That was a great game of golf, fellas. Let's go have a Coca-Cola." Sadly, these were the last words that Bing would ever say. Approximately 20 yards from the clubhouse, Crosby collapsed with a massive heart attack and died on the spot. An ambulance arrived and the paramedics attempted to revive him with no success. Bing Crosby was 74 years old. 5 days later, a private funeral mass was held at St. Paul's Catholic Church in Westwood. Crosby was buried at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City, California. Bing Crosby was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame for multiple songs, received a gaggle of industry awards, including Academy Awards for his roles in films spanning 1944 to 1960. He acted in nearly 20 different successful radio shows and owned several lucrative businesses. Bing also collected a number of gold and platinum albums, primarily for his recording of White Christmas, which was platinum on 6 different occasions for its original release and subsequent re-releases. He is still considered one of the most influential singers and musicians of the 20th century. His style and talent have seldom been matched and arguably never surpassed. He adapted with the decades, even moving into the swing set with contemporaries like Frank Sinatra and the Andrews Sisters. Their many recordings are available all over the world, and his affiliation with the Talented Sisters is still recognized to this day as popular culture in the music world. Several of Bing's collaborations, musical achievements, and film appearances are linked in the description. Please enjoy a journey through his prolific career exploits. You will not regret it. As always, thank you so much for watching, for supporting the Simstress Vintage Sims 4 channel, and for commenting and liking this video. I really am happy to be back, and I didn't know that I would be this happy to be back. I do enjoy this series. I don't know how much further we'll take it. I am contemplating re-releasing the building of the Andrews sisters. Gosh, I don't even know what to call it. It's like a complex. I don't know if anybody's been with me long enough to remember that build. That was featured on a live stream, actually, a long time ago. The channel is over 3 years old now, and well, you'd think, we could have some higher numbers, but that has long since been not a goal of mine. I just really enjoy sharing the historical aspects of the channel and working in this vintage realm. I love it so much, and I really hope that you do too. We'll see where we head after this. I've got lots of ideas, and we may be taking some slightly different turns in the future. But until next time, do enjoy the rest of this build. There is a brief tour at the end, and it's a sprawling, very outdoor, entertainment kind of centric build. That's kind of fun. I hope you'll enjoy that outdoor portion of the build. It's a slightly shorter build. Well, I thought, at least. Looking at it now, it seems like it's going on forever. But I hope you do enjoy the tour of that. And our lovely Bing and friends, they're all partying all the time in this little neighborhood that we've built for the 1940s time traveler. So I hope you enjoy that as well. And again, until next time, this time I'm really leaving, please take care of yourselves. And of course, try to remain happy, safe, and healthy. And have a beautiful day.